Hi, welcome. This is the makeup for the November mentor meeting. And at the very beginning, when people first came in, we asked them to sign in the chat box, but then also go to this link and add 3 words that describe things you are grateful for from the last 24 hours. If you are looking at this and are able to access that, please add your grateful words, gratefulness, to the Wordle that is at that poll dot everywhere. Okay? Thanks. Okay, so here's the monthly mentor meeting, the opening slide, or the title slide. There is a link there that you can go to that will give you the slide deck if you want to open it up and look at that, in addition to following along with this slide presentation. We're going to do a connecting activity that reminded us about thankfulness and gratitude. And then we're going to kind of go over some nuts and bolts, a little bit of PD and a little bit of answering questions. And the closing, we want to think about the hows and the whys for mentor candidate and teacher-student relationships in your practice. So we're looking at all of this information, thinking about how we're going to apply it to what we're doing with our own mentoring. We always have the norms, being active listeners, equity of voice, confidentiality, positive presuppositions. And I know that if you are listening to this on your own, I want you to go into it thinking that you're going to get something out of it, not just doing it because you have to. Okay? You always get out of something what you put into it. You guys know that. Okay? So thank you. And then responsible use of technology. And that's just something we always have as a standard for our students and for ourselves as we participate in distance learning and distance meetings all the time these days. Okay, this was a little reflection, social and emotional learning. Satisfied yet striving. Gratitude fosters life satisfactions and improvement motivation in youth. And it's a little bit of a reflection on a study. And I wanted you to take a minute to read it to get your mindset into what we were going to be talking about today. So just take a minute and read this to yourselves, and then I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, if you're still reading, you can stop this recording and finish reading. But what I want you to think about was talking about how students, when they're grateful or putting them in a grateful mindset, can impact their outlook on life. And I mean for all of us, not just students, but thinking about being grateful, and in this time of COVIDness and distance learning and not being able to be around people that we care about in a physical way. I know we can see them virtually, but some of us are really not connecting with either our teachers, our students, our family members, or friends in a physical way. And we know that physicality and closeness and touching helps with bonding and social emotional development. And some of that is missing right now. So I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about how do we make sure that our students that we're working with, because we're not with them physically, and it's kind of hard to do those motivation things or even the one-to-one affirmations that we do with students, as easily online as we can do it in person. So I want you to think about how do we make sure students are engaging in lessons and actively learning while we're doing what we're doing, okay? Because we don't want this to be a lost year for them. So what we asked people to do was to read this article and then to meet in breakout rooms and to talk to them, to talk to their partners in their breakout rooms and have a little discussion about this. And then I asked them to record their thoughts on a group map reflection log. So what you can do is you can take a minute to read the article that's right here, and I will put the links in the, not in the chat box, but I'll put the links with the recording, okay, so that you have those. And then also for the group map. Okay, so we're going to pause this for a second, let you go and read the article, and then see if you can add anything to the group map. And I'm going to open up the group map and show you what your peers and what the other groups have said. Thanks. Hi. As you look over this Wordle, excuse me, this isn't the Wordle, this is the brainstorm from Group Map. And if you look at the prompts, what should we start doing as far as working with our students in distance? What should we stop doing? What should we keep doing? What should we do more of? And what should we do less of? Some of the things that we should start doing include encouraging and creating expectations of cameras on. But then we talk about, if you see, it comes down here, recognizing there might be a context or a reason why students might not have the camera on. So we need to be sensitive about that, but maybe explaining why it helps the teachers to have the cameras on. So this is kind of an issue, it seems kind of generic, an issue. Start playing games with them to encourage participation. Visual votes, teachers sharing their own struggles with the technology. Let's see, surveying the students. So here's some ideas of things that the teachers came up with, or the mentors came up with, that they should start doing, and things that we should stop doing. Included all of these things, if you take a second to read those, okay? And then, but maybe what should we keep doing? And I think that this was good, and one of the things was offering lots of choices. Projects, showing empathy, offering interactive activities and lessons, and encourage them to work and be present, kind of like we always encourage our own meeting participants. And then maybe doing more of, giving social conversation with time with peer-to-peer and teacher and student, adding games, adding fun. That's always something, no matter whether we're in person or distance learning. Social time, here's empathy again, looking at that. And then something that we should do less of, sticking to the pacing guide, just being lockstep. Sometimes we need to build in a little bit more flexibility, even though we're encouraged to keep pace with our other classes, but we sometimes need to be flexible too when it's necessary. Too much teacher talk, that's always the problem. Not always, but a lot of times it is the problem. And judging and complaining. So those were some of the things that your peers in their breakout sessions between the two meetings that we had, these are things they come up with that brainstormed after reading the article and responding to the prompt. Start, stop, keep, do more of, and do less of. This is the Starfish. It's called a Starfish retrospective for distance learning. That's kind of what we called it. So I wanted to share that with you, and that's something that we did during the meeting, and these are the reflections that your peers had. Why is this important, you ask? Why is it important that we make connections and personal connections before we start talking about teaching and learning? Well, think about, and this is where we were talking about Maslow before Bloom. Think about what you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that remember it's a pyramid, and you have the bottom part where you have physiological and safety and love and belonging. We need to have students be able to feel that they are intellectually and emotionally safe, and that they are wanted and that they're part of a group before they can even wrap their heads around the fact that they're there to learn and that they need to move forward. Younger children have a harder time with this. Older children can do a little bit better without it, but still they're learning, and their receptiveness to new learning is not as deep as it might be if they have those bottom tiers satisfied before they are able to move forward. So that's why we talk about Maslow, paying attention to the Maslow, the social emotional needs of the students, and then you can step into their learning. I know my very first principal told me, I mean, this was a long time ago, but he said, you know what? If those kids are happy about coming to school, they'll learn. If they're not happy about coming to school, they might learn, but they won't learn as well, and it won't be as easy for them or for you. So that was one of words of wisdom I got a very long time ago, but I think it's still true and it's actual, and it's represented in this slide of Maslow's hierarchy of social emotional learning and needs, and then also thinking about comparing it to Bloom's taxonomy about what they can do and what they can learn. Okay, and there's an article here that's called How to Maslow Before Bloom All Day Long, and I'll put that link also in with this slide deck, okay, and with this video. Social and emotional learning for students, teachers, and families. This was a slide we shared in the last meeting. It's still very important, but things that you can do or remind your mentee to do if they're having problems or struggling at all with their students or with themselves. Okay, now we're going to talk about Go React. We're switching gears. Go React is the observation tool that we bought to be able to help you do observations with your teachers if you're not able to leave the classrooms. I asked Roseanne Graff, who's been a mentor who's been using this. She put together this little slide deck, and she shared it at the first meeting, and then at the second meeting we had Michelle Armijo, who's at Don Lugo, I think. She's used it also, so she kind of joined in and shared her experiences with it. Both of them were very, very positive about how it was used and how easy it was to use, and how much the mentees enjoyed it and were actually very, very comfortable with it, because the teachers have been using this a lot. Remember, they have to do their TPAs, TPEs, and they have to record everything. They're very comfortable with recording themselves. One caveat is that we're not recording students, we're recording them teaching, and so that this is really a way for them to get feedback on what they're teaching. One of the other things that both mentors, suggested that would make it a lot easier for you is if the teacher also submits a lesson plan with it, so that you can kind of follow along in the lesson plan as you're watching them on the video. So it's called Go React, and this is kind of how you get started with it. This is what Roseanne put together. You go in, first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a course. You go to goreact.com. They'll ask you to sign on, and you're going to use your school email. Your name should already be there. You should not have to pay anything or do anything like that. We've already paid for it. And they've gotten a list of everybody's emails. So you're in their system. So you log on with your school email, and then you're going to go to create a course. You're going to name whatever you want it to call, and when it starts and when it stops. And you're going to make that, you're going to use this, your assignment. You're going to assign them to be able to go on and record themselves. So step 2 is create an assignment, and this is an example of what Roseanne did and how she named her assignment. Fall observation, that was a standard assignment type, it was private, start date, and then she just left the open-ended due date was the end of the fall inquiry cycle. So anytime within that fall inquiry cycle, the teachers could go on and access this and record themselves and upload it for her to review. So then you send them a link and you invite them, and they go on, and you can either do it generically with if you have 3 people you're mentoring, give it to all of them, or just send them individual invites, okay? Kind of typically the way we've been doing a lot of these logging on and inviting people into our assignments. Then when you go on and you observe it, you'll watch them and you can stop, and these are examples of comments that Roseanne made. You stop and you start typing and it automatically stops. It lets you type, finish your thoughts, then it'll start going again until you start typing another comment. Okay, and then so these were examples of ones that Roseanne had done. And she said that her teacher actually really appreciated the comments and enjoyed them, and then was able to respond back, or they were able to have a conversation, the 2 of them, about this. And the teacher can watch themselves first before they upload it. So if they're not happy with what they did, they can do another one and just upload that instead. So they have more than one try to be able to do something that that they would like to submit. Okay, so that's kind of how Go React works. It's pretty simple. You do not have to do it. It is an option. Many of the elementary teachers do not have prep periods, so all elementary teachers don't have prep periods. So this was something that they're able to do without having to get a sub. If you want to get a sub and are able to, have your secretary submit the timesheet to me, and I'll take care of that. Was there anything else? No, it's not a requirement that you use this. It's a suggestion. And since our first inquiry is over, you might want to think about doing it for your second. It was a little bit costly, and if we're not using it and it's not effective, we won't continue to use it for next year. But I really would like to get some feedback on it and see if you could try it, and hopefully you'll like it. And it might make your lives a little bit easier and be able to have powerful impact and feedback for your mentees. Okay, so that's the Go React observation tool or recording feature that we have. These were some things to remind you or remember about the end of the inquiry, and I know the inquiry was over before Thanksgiving, but there's a few people there who either got late starts or things happened to where they have not, actually their teachers have not uploaded everything, so please double check and make sure your teachers have uploaded all the tools that you completed with them. Okay, and if they have any questions, pull out that checkoff sheet and show them where they're supposed to be submitted. They can go on and upload those, and then make sure that they do the fall survey, and on the ILP, make sure that they put the date, or you put the date that they said they completed the survey and that you completed your survey on, please. The co-assessments, remember, we are just doing them at the beginning of each inquiry cycle. Then we'll do a post-assessment at the end of the very last inquiry cycle, at the very end of the year. Okay, so that's kind of how we're doing that. And if your teacher has any questions, the district goals, about the district goals, they're on the district website. It's a good little scavenger hunt if your teacher does not know where they are, to get them in and to get them more familiar with the district website too. So that's something that maybe should have been done at the beginning of the school year, but if it wasn't, that was a question that came up at one of the meetings, so we added it in here. And so I think they're on the page with the LCAP, or the SARC, not the SARC, the LCAP report, or it's in that area, I think, pretty much. So it's not too hard to find, but they could find it. Okay, so that's kind of end of the inquiry reminders. And if you are already done with the inquiry, keep meeting with your teacher. You can get started right on with the next inquiry cycle. I got a question asking if that meant that they didn't have to meet, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I said, no, it was a reminder. The email I sent out was a reminder that if people started late, please make sure everything is completed before winter break. And then, because otherwise the second inquiry cycle would be too rushed. So we want to get that all done and finished so that they can come back with new thoughts, or if they're already thinking about it and getting started now, you'll be ahead of the game or right on schedule. Okay, so those were end of the inquiry reminders. This was something I was kind of wrapping up. It's in that distance learning playback book, but I wanted to share it with you. It's kind of a stoplight self-assessment, and it is for you to think about your relationship or your teacher's relationship with each other, with you, or how they are working with their students as far as social emotional development. So this is also a talking point if you have an extra week in between inquiries. This is something you could pull out and just kind of walk through with your mentee and use it for conversation starters kind of a thing, or reflection starters, okay? And thinking about, as they're going into the next inquiry, where are they at and what are they doing and how comfortable are they with these things? It's a little bit of a self-assessment. It's not a requirement, but it was a tool that I thought you might find interesting to work with. Okay, and these are the two Wordles that the elementary group came up with, the one that was in black with the black background. The secondary group came up with the one that is the maize colored second one the Wordle. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was the word family was one of the biggest ones. That, the more times people say it, the words get bigger. So family and friends and health, those were the three things that were the topmost for both groups. So if you have a chance to add to this, I'd be interested to see how that works or what you have to say about it. But I wanted you to reflect on this as we go through into the winter, last 3 weeks before winter break. And everybody's got COVID stress, school stress, fatigue. So just trying to think about your health and gratitude and gratefulness and friends and family and all those things that we have might help us get through to the other side. At least get us through to winter break, okay? And then you can get all the warm fuzzies you need. All right? Okay, thank you very much for watching, and please send me an email or when you finish watching this. Okay? Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.